Okay.
2024 Whitewater Joint Power Board meeting to order. First line item is public comments. I will ask 3 times, public comments, and once more, public comments. We have nobody in attendance, and hearing none, we'll move on to approval of meeting minutes for October 17th. Motion made by James, we have a second.
Second.
Second by Lynn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, any changes to this agenda?
No, the only change I have is the bills payable. I did an edit or a correction I had, and I'll explain that when we get to that, but otherwise it's still on the agenda as is. About the changes.
I see you split it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, hearing no changes, do we have a motion to approve the current agenda?
So moved.
Motion by Ross,
Second.
second by Brian. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, the consent items, any discussion?
Okay, for the bills payable, as I mentioned, I had to void a check, and so number 3257 is that corrected check that I had done. Basically what happened is I went and did this all up before people were leaving on vacation, and I printed the checks on Monday because I didn't want check printing to mess up with the conversion to the new Outlook at the county. I didn't want any complications.
We've been having some issues.
Yeah, and so I did all that on Monday, and then Jenna, when she came back from her vacation, sent me the last 2 documentation for the last 2, and one was Eric Klein, and he planted, I think, 2 less acres than what the contract was for. So the amount was too much, so I had to void that one and do another one. But the total of all the checks are $50,951.86. I did not include the MCIT invoice because I don't know what that will be. I haven't received it yet, but it's due in the end of January, so I'll have to do a electronic transfer to make that payment. That's an annual payment for it.
So no check needs to be signed, and we can approve
You can approve
an
it.
estimated bill.
Right. And I just went by what we did last year, and I said, that's what I'm guesstimating it will be, but I haven't received the invoice.
So, I know we've done this in the past.
You approve it tentatively.
Tentatively, and then did we put a cost factor
I
percentage
don't
to
think
it?
we did.
I think we just said, somebody really wants to throw us under the bus, they can. I think we just run with it.
All right.
So, wonderful. And I see we did get a reimbursement, which covers a big chunk of that, so.
And most of the expenses, of course, are the cover crops.
The last guy here's got to buy drinks.
All done already?
Yeah, yep, time to go home. Good. Back to work, actually. I'll give you a chance. We're just down to talking consent items right now. Just payable. Nothing over the top, just a few changes to the claims because of some acres. Numbers penciled out, we got paid back for reimbursed from SWC, I went over to Whitewater for the wellhead protection, so kind of bunch in and a bunch out. Any other discussion on the consent items?
So yes, I think, so shouldn't I pull my name out of it
Thank
and
you,
vote
Ross.
separately on that?
Yes.
Yeah, you know what?
If there's anybody
On the
that,
back page there.
Yeah,
um,
and what's crazy is I just went through that list, I didn't even think about that.
and I don't know if Bob wants to
I will.
hold on one of them as well.
Yep.
Thanks, Ross.
So, we still need a motion to approve the consent items because this is obviously payments. We still can obviously hold a quorum here, so we just need a motion in a second, please, outside of Ross or Bob.
I'll make the motion. Second.
All right, motion by Brian, second by Lynn to approve the consent items. Four of us all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. That's what all right, board reports. Ross, you want to start?
Sure, we had delayed our December meeting until yesterday. Just trying to find the highlights. They mentioned a new forester for the NRCS, Eli Lindsay, is the new, something about the National Turkey Federation dollars got him. Sheila, do you remember?
Yeah, that sounds right.
And he starts on January 13th, but his name is Eli Lindsay, allegedly no relation to Tom Lindsay, who is our current board member as well. But
I'm sorry, what's his position again?
forester for the southeast Minnesota area,
Oh, okay.
but I believe it's a NRCS position. And Winona County Soil and Water Conservation District, we were granted via Winona County outside agency funding agreement, 9% increase in our allocation for 2025, so we're very grateful for that. And we just kind of reviewed the projects and whatnot that we had accomplished for the year. And at some point in the conversation, it was interesting. I thought, I don't remember where this came from, but that Iowa contributes 20% of nitrates to the Gulf of Mexico in this study from 1997 to 2013, I want to say. And Minnesota was blamed for a contribution of 5% nitrates to the Gulf. So I thought that was noteworthy.
You know what they call that in Iowa? And this is a true slang thing. They call it insurance N.
Insurance nitrogen.
Insurance nitrogen. There's spots in Iowa that have over 30 foot of topsoil. So they just go down a little lower and a little lower. So I'm not exaggerating. So there's a lot of people that farm very extreme southern Minnesota into Iowa that have kind of the toy phrase, yeah, we always throw out 20, 30 minutes of insurance then just to be safe. And it used to be way worse when nitrogen was cheap. I'm talking 60, 80 units in. And since things have tightened up coming out of the teens, we've seen that number go down. Does not surprise me, Ross, that there's some validity to that.
And I guess the only other,
Corn's too high.
What's that?
the only other thing I'll mention that they discussed, Winona SWCD organizes and hosts the Progressive Agriculture Safety Day in 2024. They had 300 students, or they're projecting for 2025 comparable amount, 300 students plus homeschool groups and third graders, mostly in Winona County schools. But it's one of the biggest events. It's scheduled for May 20th of 2025. So that's about all I've got.
Wonderful. Thanks, Russ. What do you got, James?
Oh, it was not real busy. Approved one new contract and paid a few more bills. Sent a letter to increase the soil health initiative at the state level, or in support of that. And also, Brian from NRCS had this very nice 2-page handout of all the real nice, like just 2-sentence summary of the various programs that are being offered at specifically the federal level. And it was quite a list.
Really?
And they recommended that they print a bunch more copies of those and distribute them around. Most likely. That's about it.
All right. Thanks, James. You know, Bob?
Not a whole lot. Our AMC conference was last week. I did sit in on the meeting with Olmsted's legislative pollster, legislative Jennifer
Burkwam?
Burkwam,
Yeah.
lobbyist,
Yeah.
for that expansion of the Olmsted's cover crop program for the 8-county nitrate issue area. All counties, I think all counties were present, and everyone that was sitting there anyway showed support for it. 5% levy was approved. Just keep plugging away.
Good. What you got, Lynn?
One thing I just thought of, I went to the state convention for soil and water and sat in on a few sessions and people from University of Minnesota and whatnot, and it's really hard to find people for conservation positions, like one person available for every 2 positions. So they even suggested that, which I've been thinking about, but I haven't got there yet. We talked about it yesterday too. Like going into the high schools at some younger ages, and to try to interest people that might normally be interested but don't really have an option in some conservation field before they really make their college decision. It's too late maybe after that, so that was kind of a good point. Otherwise, yeah, a lot of cover crop stuff. We had employee evaluations I went to this week, and then our regular meeting yesterday. I mean, I guess pretty much normal stuff on that, so.
Sure.
Yeah, we've had some excitement up in Olmsted County, but the Prairie Island community had 40 acres approved by the federal government for to become sovereign land.
What defines emergency?
Just in case.
I've been burning to ask you that question since I read it in the paper.
Well, I understand. Just in case there's a problem at the power plant.
Gotcha.
I know. And we're here to find out there's other tribes that are fighting against them being able to set up another casino.
Oh, I'm sure there is. You get out to western Minnesota and it starts to get a little thin, you know, just the attendance. I've stayed at Morton for almost 20 years. You know, in fact, I remember when they built the first hotel, and it's not because I'm a gambler, but we do a lot of business out there.
Mm-hmm.
And even prior to starting this company years ago, I did a lot out there. So I've been staying there for years and years and watched the transitions and the tough times. And actually the one out of the cities is the one that loaned them the money to revamp that. And then you get out to Granite Falls where they have Prairie's Edge, you know, and just how dead those can be. So I think there's a lot of competition. They're starting to get competition that they don't want all these casinos, you know. So,
Yeah, that would definitely detract from a lot of people going.
Treasure Island in the cities.
Well, yeah, instead of running up to Carter Lake or
Exactly.
but anyway, that's just one issue. They still have, I think that's 1,200 acres total that they own.
Mm.
So they're still trying to get it moved into the land trust with the federal government. And then, I hate to say it, this is gonna be my last meeting with you guys. We got meetings, or appointments changed, so Dave Sengen will be coming down with you to visit. Give you information, but I still will be on Winlac, and I got moved over to Root River again, so.
Oh, okay.
So I'll be involved with the watershed stuff yet.
Switcheroo.
I guess
Well,
that's-
good. Well, thanks for being on the board.
Oh, yeah,
Yep,
it's
thank you.
just good to find out what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else, Brian?
I think that's basically it.
Who did you say is replacing, or Dave?
Send them.
Oh, yeah, okay. Let's see, us. Well, it was close, but our tax levy did pass for Winona County. I advocated hard for that. We went straight into people, my promise to the constituents was that, if that passed, we'd keep it under the initial funding, or levy that we thought, which was 3.76. Of course, we went right into figuring out how to spend more of it, you know, after we dropped it that far. And we did manage to keep that from happening. In fact, we passed our $82 million budget this morning. It did go faster than what I thought. I thought we'd have a lot more deliberation, but it was kind of a 3-2 vote across the board for a lot of it. So Commissioner Ward and I didn't get our way in a few things because I honestly think we could have got it down even further, which is what I was trying to present. But nonetheless, we did still get it even under that at 3.67. So it could have been a lot worse. Winona County's number 4 in the state for efficiency for per capita on taxpayer, and we have a lot of push to say, hey, we got a lot of we can spend a lot more money on our tax base, and I say we should be number 1. So we continue to find the efficiencies, so that was good. Got our budget approved, got the levy passed. Ross alluded to, we did give the SWCD a small increase, and we also managed to get our 4-H coordinator to a full-time position also. So now we have 2 4-H, and those are the 2 things that I wanted to do. Went to the Driftless Ag meeting Tuesday night? Wednesday night? What day is it? Friday? Wednesday night.
17th.
Yeah, because it was Ed's wake. That was Wednesday. So anyway, Driftless Ag Alliance, I don't know if you guys have heard of that at all. Ross, you know about
I'm
those?
a member.
Yep. So the Driftless Ag Alliance, really there's no set boundary as to who would be involved, but it's just a group of farmers and professionals and businesses that are kind of getting together to try to figure out how to do things better. They bring in guest speakers. We had the SWCD come in. We had the commissioner come in, Tom. They've had a plethora of different people come in at different meetings. I haven't made every one of them. I personally am a member, but we're going to get signed up through GrowSource here after this year. Rita Young is the chairman of that, Maura Young's wife. She heads a lot of that up. So encourage you guys, take a look at that. It's a really good thing. It'll put a little bit different perspective as to what people are doing out there. And interesting enough, yesterday, another predominant dairy that I really have never, I know them, but I've never done anything with them, just called up out of the blue and said, hey, we really need to figure, how can we go to the next level with this manure thing? What can we do different? So I think it is really leading things in a positive manner, and I think it's also offsetting what I'm going to call the far extremism of what we're seeing in some of the other groups. And what we're hoping is that we can kind of come to a middle, and everybody begins to see that there's a way that maybe you might want us to farm, and then there's the way that we can farm today because of economics and the best things that we can do with what we have. So I really like the group. I think it's going to bring some traction to maybe seeing a better vision as to where all this goes.
What was it?
The Driftless Ag Alliance.
Ag
Yeah,
Alliance.
and they're looking for members. To be a member, I think it's $100. If you are in the community and want to donate at like a business or corporate type level, I think it starts at 500.
Yes.
Yeah.
500. Yeah, so that's what we'll do. I was just. It was started last year, so I jumped on just as an individual, paid the $100, just wanted to sit in, kind of get a feel as to what the group was about.
Sure.
And now I really like what I see, so we're going to jump in at the corporate level. I guess that's all I really have. So, anything else?
So can I add just one thing I forgot to mention? Not curious if anyone's heard of this. The University of Minnesota. This was sent to me by the Midwest Forage Association. Something that's coming up in Mankato. It's called a Manure Shed Action Network, and I believe it's going to be in Mankato on January 30th or Sauk Center on January 28th, and it is a Manure Shed Action Summit, and they're trying to communicate on a watershed level with, so that it might be relevant to us. Who can participate: livestock farmers, crop farmers who manage lands, receiving manure, other manure management professionals, interest groups. Literally just received this 2 hours ago, but the U of M, the USDA.gov, it's Megan Donovan. Megan.Donovan at USDA.gov is the one organizing it. So the USDA is organizing it, and it's, I don't know if it's a pilot program, but Minnesota, New Mexico, and Colorado is where they are focusing.
And did you say Minnesota Forage, or what?
Midwest Forage
Midwest Forage, yeah, I'm
Association
pretty sure we're members of that.
sent that to me, and it's just a dairy, swine, poultry, anybody with manure application. It just references manure acres are getting less and less as the phosphorus requirements, the parts per million keep coming down in our manure management plans. So the acres are harder to come by, so there's apparently some different ideas on how to manage within the manure shed.
And that's a big thing that we've been trying to help a lot of farms with direct, outside of the normal wholesale thing, is really educating farmers where they're at. And one of the things, I was just up in North Dakota last week, and of course, it's a little bit different. There's not, the dairies up there are either very large or nothing, but then you do have a lot of feedlots. So there's a fair amount of manure in some areas, and there's some lighter ground in some areas. And one of the seminars that I've been presenting, some of these are half hour, some of them are 3 hours, but I talk about farming on the curve. And this is with manure. And this has a lot to do with getting more out of manure, and I'll just kind of show you what my talks have been. I draw a bell curve, like just a bell curve, simple horseshoe. And the concept is this: if $200 of fertilizer gets you 200 bushel corn, let's put $400 worth of fertilizer out there, and we should get 400 bushel corn, right?
Good luck with that.
Doesn't work. Okay, so let's just reverse that. If 20,000 gallons of dairy manure gets you 200 bushel corn, let's just put 40,000 out there. We should get 400 bushel corn. Well, that doesn't work either, right? So the question becomes why? And then let's go to the far extreme. And everybody knows you pile manure up in the corner of the field and you go haul it out, and the following year you plant corn through it and nothing grows there. We've all seen it. So that means at some point you have zero yield potential, and at some point through over application you have zero yield potential. So where are you farming on the curve? And what I've seen in the industry working with exceptionally large operations, I'm talking 50,000 acres down to 50 acre farms, with conventional fertilizers, even organic fertilizers, with manure, it doesn't make a difference. Everybody's pushing the envelope. And at some point, what ends up happening is you begin to go over the tipping point, and you're actually farming on the backside. And to go up, you actually have to get out of your own way in order for this to continue to go up. And so the reality of it is we begin to show people, through manure application, through nitrogen application, things like that, the idiosyncrasies of over applying. Because this doesn't just fall off at some point. It's a curve where eventually you're back to zero. So there's a lot of people farming on the backside of this curve, thinking they're actually going in the right direction, and they're not. So what this begins to do is shift the mindset of a person that has manure or tends to push the 40, 50 units of nitrogen or whatever it might be, and to go back towards efficiency, because it honestly is the only way you can begin to actually improve yields and utilize those sources at a higher ROI. And then we get into how can you begin to do that? How can you treat manure different? What can you do with manure? How can you, the things that you can do, or fertilizer plans, or nitrogen fixators, or stabilizers, and all the things that are out there, and incorporating them into the program under the pretense of beginning to determine how to increase ROI and actually get more out of what you're doing, thus reducing the need to apply more and things like that. And a lot of it's nitrogen based because we apply these things, especially manure, for the nitrogen, not the phosphorus and the potassium. We're watching that nitrogen. So the better job we do there, we actually begin to get those things out of the way, and what we exponentially see is we get more out of the same gallon or out of the same pound or whatever it is. And we just go through why that is and the chemistry behind it and everything else. So this, and you would be amazed at when you start drawing this out, the questions this creates and the looks you get, because nobody is thinking like this in the industry. They don't understand. Chances are they're on the other side of the curve. And they're actually, the trajectory is a negative yield response. It's a negative ROI. So you begin to say, hey, you want to get your ROI, we've got to start figuring out how to go back up the curve. So anyway, so that has been gathering a lot of attention as I've been starting to put those talks on for growers. And dealers that we work with kind of throughout the country. So we'll continue to keep trying, so. Anyway, all right, thank you, Ross. So we are on to line item 7, board discussion and action items, financial update. Sheila.
Okay, so for the October and November reconciliations, as of the end of October, we had 114,000 in our, between money market and checking, and it was 114,800 for November. You might note that our checking balance at the end of November was 11,888. I did do a $55,000 transfer from the money market to checking to cover the checks for this meeting.
And what are we making on that money market again for interest?
Well, we did, it should be in the financial packet in front of Bob. Just grab for one of the, it'll show what the interest rate was for. So look like for the reconciliation
Summary, yeah.
detail, there might be,
99 or what, no.
yeah. So is it about $100 a month?
No, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
I just know with the interest rates changing that, you know, some of those more stationary T-bill things and stuff like that, where we kind of hold funds as a stable fund, we're starting to see that drop.
Okay.
And there might be some
That makes
other
sense.
avenues,
Mhm.
you know, that we could get a little more interest out of it, especially if we got some larger funds in there.
Yeah, well, and most of that money that we have in the money market, well, not most of it, but that's why we did this shift, because we had that balance from the drinking water grant. Well, that grant ends at the end of this month,
Yeah.
and so,
We get more, just
Yeah.
curious. So. Good?
It's gotta be right here. I can't see it.
That's okay.
yeah,
She'll text me and email me.
okay.
Any other discussion on that? All right, moving on to B, Whitewater Drinking Water Protection Grant Updates. Grant status, grant concludes, like
Yep.
Sheila just alluded to, the end of the year.
Yep, it ends at the end of this year, and I really appreciate all the effort from Wabasha and Winona SWCD staff to get these cover crops sold and taken care of. So we'll be able to, I know, I think it was a couple months ago, I had said, well, we might be turning some money back to the state. It doesn't look like we will now. You know, after all the cover crops are paid out at this meeting, I think all I will have is about $2,000 left, and I didn't put in my hours yet for this year, so that'll be, we'll spend that money and have it done, and
Good.
that report is due at the end of January.
How about the contract payments?
Okay, so now we got the contract payments, and both Wabasha and Winona did them a little bit differently. I will pass around Winona's right now, and they were approved yesterday at their meeting. And because they're all one piece. You kind of have to, they're all one document. And it basically is all
Can
their,
you do that now?
yeah, they're all, I should have.
I see.
Yeah.
Keep that together.
Yeah, so on the front page is all the cover crops contracts that were done in Whitewater, and then what Winona SWCD did for the rest of the county. And there were a number of their contracts that were split. If the farm field was outside of the Whitewater, then they pulled money from the WinLAC. And so one contract, 100 acres max, might have been split between two. And to make things easier and more efficient, Winona SWCD did the contract, and then they figured out which pot to pull the money out of. So that's all of their funds, and it comes to $34,130. And that is on the back side of the bills payables. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 grants for contracts. And that's how they did it, so that's all said and done. And then the Wabasha contracts, I have 4. We did 3 approvals at our last meeting because they were planted a bit earlier. And I will pass these around, there's 4 different ones. And so they did them, Wabasha SWCD did the TAA, or the JAA for that and everything, but then we have to sign off as for administrative sign off. But, so they did them a little bit differently, but we still come out of the same point. Got the contracts done and approved.
Now, we technically covered that in the consent item, so didn't we? To pay these. Yeah,
Right,
so really not
but
an action item.
I don't know if Ross and Bob wanna say, hey, I don't wanna vote on this particular one even though they are consent items.
They were consent items, so we approved the payments through the consent items,
Okay,
correct?
all right.
Didn't we?
Mhm.
Because you had them on the consent page.
Right.
Right. Okay,
And
so we really don't
I
need a
thought
board
we did
action.
abstain, didn't we?
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, well, he said
Yeah.
I just-
sleeping.
He coughed.
That's what he did.
Yes, you did.
I heard.
So anyway, we have 15 contracts to be approved, and then there were 3 approved at the last meeting, so 18 contracts altogether. I think there was just 1 contract, and I think it was with Winona SWC that they signed the contract and they never got it planted. And then 1 in each of the counties that they had a contract signed, but then did not plant as many acres. So I thought it went really well. I was kind of tense a little bit there, not knowing, thought, oh gosh, I hope this is a good fall to plant cover crops. So,
Okay. So we technically approved those, although they were line itemed out in the action items,
mhm,
they were approved through the consent items.
okay.
I mean, we could take another vote on it, technically
It's up to you, you're the chair.
yeah, I know, just to cover our base, just to be safe, we could just say that it was approved to be in the consent. We could actually take a separate vote if we wanted to make that happen, so.
One question here is I'm signing checks. Is there an Eric Klein in Winona County?
It's the same person, but he has land in both, so he had 2 different contracts, but adding
Okay.
them up, he does not exceed the.
Oh, okay,
Yes,
I didn't,
I
I
did
just
check
saw the
that.
name under Winona, and I'm like,
yep, he's getting a check from Winona SWCD, and then he's getting a check from us for the Wabasha one.
We don't sign that check, we do sign that check.
what's
Well, you
that?
sign the check, okay. Yeah. So I'm gonna call a roll call or vote on this, just to cover our bases, because it's arguably, you could say it was a consent item, to be on the consent item. So I just need a motion for the cover crop contract payments with abstaining from Ross and Bob once again, to just approve it.
So moved.
Motion by Brian, second by James. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries. Okay. So we are officially covered. Clean Water Fund competitive grants.
Okay, and so I had submitted on behalf of the Whitewater competitive grant to support some of the activities for nutrient management and groundwater protection. And so that was in August. And then when I heard that all of the, of the applicants, that our category, there were 3 categories. There was projects and practices, and then a subcategory for groundwater protection, and then accelerated implementation. The grant submitted by the Whitewater was accelerated implementation. Of the 3 categories, the accelerated implementation, there were fewer grant applications than funds available. So I thought, good, we got it. We didn't. What happened is, and this was, I pulled this from the board The Bowser Board had their meeting yesterday and I thought, oh gosh, it's not even on here. And basically, paragraph 2 of their findings of fact were that the Minnesota law session appropriated $9,682,000, of which approximately $3,195 is currently unallocated. And the board may shift grant, cost share, and easement funds in this section and may adjust technical, so that they have a paragraph saying that we have the ability to move these funds around. And so when I went to the RFP, they had, they said we would fund $5 million for projects and practices. They ended up funding $6 million for projects and practices. And they said we will fund drinking water subgrant up to $1,283,000, and they added about almost $70,000 to that pot. And they took that over $1 million out of the accelerated implementation. So they shifted their funds around, and our grant did not get funded. So that's what they did. But it is what it is. It did say in the fine print that they had the leverage to do that. So we have no grant, but I can pass these around. This is the RFP, and then the Bowser's. This is from their board meeting yesterday. So I wish I had some good news to report, but I don't on that front.
Just because if you use the gift cards and whenever they want to.
Yeah, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose.
Yep, it happens.
Okay. Well, I guess that will lead us down to, we're obviously not going to have any agency reports, so.
Well, I've got the 2024 accomplishments, and there's nothing to say on that. It's just a summary of the grants that we administered for this year, and that's at the tail end of the packet.
Anybody else have anything on that? I think we're in for a bumpy ride here, though. We're going to see where some state funding, something I alluded to this morning on the budget.
They're going down, yeah.
Yeah, it's going to get, so we got to tighten the belt a little bit and figure out where to put a good dollar in everything that we do, so it'll be interesting, but, yeah.
So I have a general question, I guess, that came up in our meeting, our last meeting, and maybe even the meeting prior. The Olmsted County representatives in the room, I guess, questions directed toward you in reference to your cover crop program. So there's a on-again, off-again conversation. I know, Josh, you have said we want to incentivize first-time producers to, and incentivize them to participate and implement the cover crops, but at some point, we want to pull away the funding from them. So that was a question is Olmsted County part of the current program? Is it a one and done? Is a producer incentivized with a monetary payment for a year or two and then they're out? Or it is a 3-year?
I believe it's 3 years,
Yeah,
isn't it?
most of them were established as 3 that I know of, weren't they?
Initially, yes,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
what we had currently was 1 year.
Yeah. The idea that I always said years ago when we started looking at heavily or trying to figure out where to get the money years ago was 3 years. 3 years to show the benefits. 3 years for the opportunity, 3 years to really see what changes. And, it's the David Hula. We walked in and somebody had made mention, it was Brian, about David Hula, the world record holder, 626 bushel corn. I've talked with Dave many times. We had supper together many times. And, he'll tell you, oh gosh, you got to do something 3 times before you throw the baby out with the bathwater type of deal. He believed in it too. I mean, you got to have some replication to show the benefits. So, that's rung in my head many times over the years, different conversations. So that's why I always said 3 years. But yet, when you got a long list of people that want to get on, do you honor that, or do you go to trying to help more people do it? That's the next question.
What we did was saved, if I recall correctly, ARPA funds, and that went right to the program.
Yeah.
So that money's sitting there, and it is increasing as far as getting individual or farms that want to get involved with it. And of course, 75 acres, I think, max. But it's, I'm going to say we're up at 100 and I shouldn't say I don't remember the numbers exactly, but, you don't recall any of that? How many farms are actually involved? Was it like a
I
hundred?
always had the impression that was sort of a county board
Yeah.
activity, but.
Well,
I mean,
Skip
that's where
takes
the
care of a
money-
lot of
yeah,
that,
yeah.
so. I just.
I think it's gone out, and it was like $5 million over 5 years.
Yeah.
And I think this year, he was saying something like 800,000 of that had been spent for this year's, and I don't know what the logistics are as far as if the money's not spent in 1 year, does it go back, or does it get carried over?
No, we still hang,
or-
Yeah.
it's gonna stick, with being it's ARPA funds, we're gonna just, continue with the program as long as we can.
But it's increasing.
Yeah.
I
it's-
mean, well, not increasing, but there's increasing participation, definitely.
Yeah.
And my understanding was that it's like 150 up to 150 acres, 55 for basic, and then there's a step up thing after that. But, yeah, it's the county, or the SWCD, we get some information coming through, but it's not real regular, and so I can't give you a whole lot of specifics, but I'm not sure if that answers your question or not.
For the most part, yes, and it's just in this case in point, the Winona County cover crop contracts got reimbursement through grant dollars from here that would have disappeared.
Mhm.
So there's a balance of, okay, let's incentivize repeat producers versus letting the grant dollars disappear. There's a in-depth conversation, and my neighbor, you wouldn't mind me mentioning his name again, Keith Speltz, he's an organic producer, and he wants to be financially rewarded. He's actually not, he might be on this pay list, or he got paid directly. Yes, there he is, right there. He's one of the recipients. So it benefits everybody downstream, so why should I foot the entire bill, is his argument. So, and then I support him to some degree, as long as there's grant dollars that are gonna disappear anyway, we might as well, keep them in the community. But whatever, I wanted to clarify that, so it is a 3-year, is typically what Olmsted County is going
But
for.
I don't think we've had an issue getting rid of the dollars. We've actually had more people, we actually can't. We've done it on a first come, first served type basis. So,
And sorry to clarify, Whitewater Joint Powers,
I think Winona County has done
Okay.
this, SWCD, and here we've done it on a first come, first served basis.
I can't remember, I think it was WAG shifted a bunch of money
Did they?
to fund the cover crop
The rest of it,
payments.
yeah. Because I know.
They'd allocated so much. and
Yeah, I
it was
know
gone.
multiple people that came in to ask and there wasn't any money, so I think we don't have a problem getting rid of the money, it's just who's gonna get it. And I can see in the future, if the funding sources either stay somewhat flat or reduce or maybe even go up, the percentage of people, once they get on it, of course, are gonna come back and continue to reapply, that it might even change the acre threshold. That we might have to lower that 150 to 75 or 50 or 100 or whatever that might be, just to try to get it across more people. And again, it was never intended to be a long-term supplement. It wasn't never that, and I made that very clear from the beginning. The idea was to show the economic benefits to landowners or to an ag business, that, hey, there's an economic benefit to putting in a cover crop, both short-term and long-term, that now it was to help them see that, hey, you can reduce your nitrogen bill, hey, you can ward off an insect pressure, hey, you've got better soil drainage, whatever it is to producing better crops. And this was the taxpayer saying, here, let us help show you there's benefits to this economically, and now you take advantage of the benefits. Because otherwise it's, you look at the subsidy on all the farm acres, it would be a very, very large bill to foot if everybody decided to do it. So that was always the idea to me. So alluding to Keith's point, definitely get that there's a benefit, but there's also a potential benefit for him too to continue the practice. So that's the way I've always presented it since the very beginning. Was this is the money from the taxpayer to help to overcome the fear of I spent the money and I didn't see anything.
I like that idea better than keeping someone from committing a crime, like paying someone to not do the bad thing. I happened to go to the Homestead Clinic on the south side of Rochester, and I noticed some quite big cornfield that may be vertical tilled. It didn't really look like chisel ply and whatever, but I could see where water had ran down through there. You could see the divots in there. You know, they weren't deep like some other places, even after you chisel plow, but I mean, made me think there's lots of places that could use waterways or cover crop or something yet. So, but you'd hate to have someone say, well, I'm gonna keep doing that unless.
Well, and when this really started, I alluded to the very beginning, and again, I'm not trying to say I, but it just, what I said, was education. The educational piece of this taxpayer subsidized cover crop program is just as important as the money to start the cover crop program, because if it doesn't, it'll fail. Because if we don't show the benefits, if we don't physically get out there and talk to them, and that's why we did that report we did last year, Sheila, that said, hey, what did you see? What changed? That's part of that, hey, farmer, hey, landowner, what did you see? We're trying to educate them to say, continue to do this practice on your own because there's some sort of financial benefit or whatever that is to you, so that we can move on and take those dollars and go to more people with it. So I highly doubt we'll get to a point, unless it's at a federal level, that any sort of long-term sustainable cover crop program will get put into place, because the economic burden at a state level or a county level is going to be a pretty big bill, So.
What is this chart show?
Okay,
Besides-
this is, so all the 2024 contracts that we have
Right.
for the cover crops, the ones in yellow are the ones that were approved today. And then we did the 3 earlier, but basically, landowner, the rate of payment, either $50 or $60 an acre, how many acres, the amount of payment, and then beyond that, TN is the pounds per year that were reduced because of that cover crop in place.
That's nitrogen?
Yes, and then
TP
TP
is
is total phosphorus, and sediment tons per year. Now, these calculations are from the WinLAC, when we did the WinLAC plan, we did worked with the consultant, and they developed this BEAST calculator, best estimate of, and I forget what the AAST stands for, but it's this huge spreadsheet, but basically it makes it easier to do the calculations. All you have to do is identify cover crop, how many acres, and then it automatically populates what the pollution reduction rates are. So those are the numbers that we get to report in eLink.
And that's a pretty wide variable, but
Oh,
again, when you
definitely.
go back to trying to
Yeah,
guess, it's an educated
Multi-species
guess
ver-
at
yeah,
best,
yeah.
is all that
Yeah.
is.
Okay, so these last 3 columns are estimations?
right,
Not actual?
Subject.
exactly, because we didn't have a lysimeter in place to do the actual measurements. These are just estimates based on that calculating tool.
Thanks.
Okay, any other discussion?
I just have one announcement for the local advisory team. We have the meeting for Elgin on January 15th. That'll be their 6th local advisory team meeting, and then the one for Altura will be on February 6th. So, moving forward on that, they're really
Just-
close to getting their best management list done.
What was the date for Legends?
January 15th, it's a Wednesday, and then February 6th is the Altura meeting. And the Utica is still on hold
Where are those meetings, at Ellison?
at the fire hall,
Okay.
and they meet at 10 to noon.
Christmas request, if everybody could pass the small cellophane packages to the center here.
Yeah, right.
I've made that request for 8 years, and nobody's done it.
Here you go, Dan.
That's about it. All right, hear nothing else, got a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
Motion by Bob, second by Brian. Time to adjourn the meeting, all those in favor, second by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries, we are adjourned, Merry Christmas, everybody.
Yeah, Merry